Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in Freshman English. And we turn now in your hymnals, after we have finished with the Odyssey, to page 1126, 1127 and following. We are now going to look at 4 offerings. Write this down. We are going to look at 4 offerings that will have something to do with the Odyssey. Now, at 2b, you want to write this down in your annotative work, at 2b on page 1126. The first thing is contemporary interpretation. What do we mean by that? We mean that we are going to take a text that we'll call an old text, a classic text, and we're somehow going to reinvent it in some way. You could jot down right now at 3a a video game, if you're a gamer, that sounds something like the Odyssey. I'll bet you can find something from the Odyssey that fits into some kind of game that you know right now, or a movie that you know right now, or a TV show that you've seen, where something like the Odyssey happens, okay? So we're going to be playing with contemporary interpretation, right? Notice the bullet points. Writers, we're told, will draw from classic or traditional or simply well-known source material for a variety of reasons. Timeless universal themes, recognizable character setting conflicts, established meaning and importance, quick introduction of complex ideas, basis for additional interpretation and new layers of meaning. We're then going to get to that, do you see that bold word? Write it down. Illusion. Oh, I know what that is. That's when the magician makes the elephant go away. No. That's an I-L-L-U-S-I-O-N. That's an illusion, I-L-L. When you make people believe they see something they don't actually see. That's an illusion. This is an illusion. But the word is pronounced the same way. What is an illusion here? Reference to another text. We're going to play this game a lot, obviously, at 3A, where we're referring to other texts. The first one of these poems that we're going to look at is the Edna St. Vincent Millay poem, An Ancient Gesture. By the way, on page 1127, you have a little bit of information about Millay. You're going to meet her again later in your high school career. Remembered for her artistic experimentation and as well her rebelliousness. Several important collections, but the most important in 1923, the Harp Weaver and Other Poems, earned her a Pulitzer Prize, the most important prize for writers. All right, let's go to it now. An Ancient Gesture. Here, we're going to have a poem where Penelope is going to have a gesture that's somehow echoed by a modern woman, suggesting that enduring grief and loneliness is itself heroic. We often think of the Odyssey as Odysseus' poem. We just finished with the Odyssey and we made the observation, no, there's Penelope's side of the story. Let's follow along now. Pay attention to this one. We'll do the reading, then we'll annotate. Here we go. Follow along.
An Ancient Gesture by Edna St. Vincent Millay. I thought as I wiped my eyes on the corner of my apron, Penelope did this too, and more than once. You can't keep weaving all day and undoing it all through the night. Your arms get tired, and the back of your neck gets tight. And along towards morning, when you think it will never be light, and your husband has been gone, and you don't know where for years, suddenly you burst into tears. There is simply nothing else to do. And I thought, as I wiped my eyes on the corner of my apron, this is an ancient gesture, authentic, antique, in the very best tradition, classic Greek. Ulysses did this too, but only as a gesture which implied to the assembled throng that he was much too moved to speak. He learned it from Penelope, who really cried.
Now, this is a beautiful poem on a number of counts. Think about the ways in which the Odyssey is reinterpreted through the eyes of Penelope. But our speaker is a modern woman, right, who is simply going to wipe the edge of her eye with her apron because for her, life is really hard. And she immediately goes back to the woman who had a really hard life. Who was it? Penelope. For 20 years, waiting for Odysseus to come back, or in the case here, Ulysses to come back. Notice we're told Penelope had to do this wiping of the eyes as well. Finally, all sometimes you can do is burst into tears. Simply nothing else to do, we're told at line 9, right? I thought as I wiped the eyes on the corner of my apron, notice again the colon, we got the same game being played, right, with line 1, line 10. This crying, in other words, wiping away a tear, is an ancient gesture, antique, meaning old. In the very best tradition, notice Greek antique rhyme. Did you see it at level 2B? Did you see the little bit of rhyming that goes on? She's not going to play the game all the way through, is she? But little bits of it, right? And then Ulysses did it too. It was a gesture, and of course we have this gesture in the Odyssey several times, where Odysseus, when Alcyoneus, for example, has the bard come in at the land of the Phaeacians and tell the story about the great warriors at the walls of Troy, Odysseus will wipe a tear out of the corner of his eye, and that's the giveaway to Alcyoneus that, oh, this is a special guy. I wonder if he was there at the walls of Troy. And of course he has to confide or admit, no, I'm actually Odysseus, the great warrior at the walls of Troy, right? Because by the time Troy falls, remember, Achilles is dead, which makes the greatest warrior at the fall of Troy to be Odysseus. He's the great warrior. He's the last man standing, if you will. But notice the poet says, even though Odysseus stood in front of people and cried, and of course we know that whole thing about men aren't supposed to cry and all of that, but Odysseus does it. We saw it even at the end of the Odyssey, right? Notice she says, Odysseus actually learned how to cry from Penelope. She's the one who really had the hardest life. At 2a, jot down a possible message then here for yourself. One obvious one is Penelope, every bit as heroic as Odysseus. Although her journey was not a journey out, but a journey in. At level 2b, well, the gesture is obviously the symbol here, isn't it, of all symbols. That little bit of wiping away a tear. In other words, sometimes the only answer to suffering is to just simply weep and to wipe away the tear. In other words, Penelope equals strength. And this ancient gesture is the way that we get there. At 3a, well, obviously this is referencing the Odyssey, no question. What is the text for you, though, that is the classic text of weeping? Very best text of weeping for you. It might even be in a video game where, for example, the hero has gone through some like tragic loss and then cries. What is for you the text of weeping? The Iliad, when we study it, by the way, the Iliad in your senior year, the Iliad has several times where Achilles, after the death of Patroclus, the mother and father of Hector on the walls of Troy, will weep. Right, and Andromache as well, the husband, the wife of Hector, after he gets jacked, she'll weep. What's the text of weeping? And finally, at 3b, what is a time in your life when you were so sad that you had to weep? And was it legit, or was it a gesture? Gesture seems to suggest that maybe it's not fully authentic. In other words, when Odysseus does it, he does it for show. Here, Penelope, the woman, is all by herself. She has no reason to make a show. All sometimes you can do when you're sad is weep, right? And, of course, endure, right?